Facts.
Well, hello and welcome to the Thursday, or of course, as we like to call it around here, the Friday Eve edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Hope you're having a good day. I just saw a headline flash across the television as I sat down to do the show and said, maritime farmers happy with the wet weather that's in the forecast as drought conditions persist. There is some wet weather in the forecast. In fact, it's looking threatening right now, is it not? There's some dark skies and those black clouds. But from what I understand, and just relaying the information from our weather specialist, Alistair Alders, doesn't look like there's going to be a whole lot of rain, at least in Halifax, from this system. So any little bit will help. That much is for sure. Had a conversation with somebody who had been down the South Shore towards Liverpool last weekend, and told me about the Mersey River, and it's in dire straits. It's pretty skinny water there, and I know the bigger rivers, the Lahave will have some water, and it's a big system. But I know a lot of the smaller creeks and tributaries and feeder systems into those big rivers are if not bone dry, they're certainly on their way there. So any little bit of rain will help. I can speak for the fish, right? They're probably pretty stressed about this as we get into the winter season. Nice to get some of those rivers and lakes topped up before the inevitable happens, and that, of course, is when we start to see snow and things start to freeze up. What wasn't cold last night were the Toronto Blue Jays. Were they? Holy smokes, did they find their bats? A huge win last night in Game 3 of the American League Championship Series. The Blue Jays accumulating 13 runs last night. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 4 for 4 at the plate. 3 runs scored and 1 RBI. George Springer had 2 runs scored on a 3-hit evening for the Blue Jays. Just about everybody in the lineup got a hit last night. Now, as Simon said in the sports earlier today, I don't think we're out of the woods yet, but this has certainly made the series more interesting as the Jays continue to stay in Seattle. Let's not forget that this is a best-of-7 series. It's one of those 2-3-2 series, and what that means is that there were, of course, 2 games in Toronto. There are now 3 games, with 2 left to go now, in Seattle, and then 2 more should they need them in Games 6 and 7 in Toronto. So if the Jays can win tonight, the series is going to come back to Toronto, and I know that would be good news for a lot of people as they watch that series. Let's hope that the offense continues. Guerrero Jr. was silent for Games 1 and 2, and then last night found his stroke, as they say, and when Guerrero Jr. plays well and scores some runs and hit some home runs. Holy smokes, the stadium, T-Mobile in Seattle, is not known as a home run hitter's park. It's just not. It's just the configuration, the winds, the currents, everything else. But I think the Jays got 5 home runs last night. So that's pretty outstanding. And let's hope that continues. Game 4 goes tonight. We will have that game live right here on 95.7 News Radio. I think the start's 9:30 tonight. So 9:30, Game 4 right here. Toronto Blue Jays look to even up their series in the American League Championship with the Seattle Mariners. I know you're going to tune into that one. It's really caught fire, and it's so very interesting how I hear about it a lot, that sports in this country are very Toronto-centric. Trust me, I hear about that a lot. And I get it that there's only one Major League Baseball team. There, of course, used to be 2, but there's just one. And the country gets behind it. This reminiscent to me of the run that the Toronto Raptors made. Do you remember that, when the Raptors won the NBA championship and the country, there were watching parties on the streets, and We had one down, a couple down at Rogers Square in downtown Halifax. It was something to see a whole country get behind one franchise, and I think we're seeing that with the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have been Canada's team for a long time, since the Expos left. But we haven't seen this deep of a push in the playoffs for several years. So hopefully they win tonight, even up that series, and make a whole new series out of it with the Mariners. Again, 9:30 tonight, right here on 95.7 News Radio. If you're listening to the show yesterday, a couple of things out of that. One, a vigorous discussion, I think I called it yesterday, on annual incomes, guaranteed annual incomes. That's what those discussions are about. Everybody gets a chance to say their piece. And for those of you that didn't get on the show yesterday, I apologize. We'll probably bring that subject back. Maybe Friday when we do the free-for-all. We'll get back into that. But if you were listening to the beginning of the show yesterday, something that hasn't happened to me in 30 years happened, and that was, of course, I swallowed a bug. It was flying around in the studio. Vanessa's still laughing about it. I was flying around the studio. I wish it was flying around in the studio, and ended up going right down the old trap, as they say. And it was it was an experience. I got an email from Phil from Berwick, and I wanted to share it with you this morning before we got into the serious stuff. And Phil writes, it says, Dan was live on the air when a fly started buzzing around his head like it owned the place. One wild swing later, Dan accidentally swallowed it. He coughed, laughed it off, and kept talking. Meanwhile, no one, not a single listener, cared about the fly's untimely demise. Deep inside Dan's throat, the fly buzzed weakly, probably thinking, "Oh, this sucks." That's from Phil from Berwick. I get a lot of emails from y'all, and I read them all. And most of them are on the topics of the day. Some of them I don't agree with. Some of them are a little bit out there. Some of them bring really good points to the conversation. Some of them bring story ideas to the show. But I had to share that one because it truly made me laugh yesterday when I read it when I was at home. And I thank Phil for his prose, as I would say. Infants under the age of 8 can now get free protection against RSV. The program for infants, this from the province, by the way, which will be offered every year during the RSV season, typically from late fall to spring, began on Wednesday, runs right through until April 30th. Newborns will be offered their dose before being discharged from hospital, and other eligible infants can receive their dose from their primary care provider or public health. RSV, as you've heard during our House Calls segment, is a common respiratory virus that can lead to several complications like bronchitis and pneumonia, particularly in infants and, of course, older adults. Now, Nova Scotia began to offer the RSV vaccine to adults 75 years of age and older back in September. This edition, the province says, builds on existing RSV immunization programs for adults living in long-term care and children under 2 years of age with certain health conditions. So now infants under the 8 months of age can get their RSV vaccine, and that came out from the province a little bit earlier this morning. I don't know if you saw this. It was on the CBC's website, and it's a product of what we saw down at Province House when the government sat for a grand total of 8 days and introduced legislation via this omnibus bill. And I've got a couple of people send me emails asking what an omnibus bill is. Well, an omnibus bill is a large document that can have 6, 7, 8, 9, however many different elements to it, a lot of times unrelated. It's a government tool to get a lot of legislation pushed into the process very quickly. Limiting debate, because think about it. If you had 8 pieces of legislation, you would have to do bill introductions for 8 of them. Then there's all of the procedures that happen with that, and then it goes to committee, and then it goes to onto the floor, and there's debate, and there's votes, and everything else, and which is the way it should happen, by the way, in my opinion. I'm not a fan of omnibus bills, but what happens when the government does this is that it takes a while for all of the contents of these mammoth bills to kind of filter their way out. there's been a couple of occasions that we heard of the sort of the marquee item of the bill, and that was what was in the public sphere, and then suddenly when people started digging into the actual documents, they start to find things, and some of them make you go, huh? Like this one. This from the CBC's website this morning. Nova Scotia residents can no longer file complaints about their municipal elected officials. A move one advocate's calling dangerously undemocratic. Last Tuesday, according to this article, the province made changes to the Municipal Code of Conduct it said stemmed from feedback from municipalities. Those changes included a clause stating that the complaint may only be made by a member of council in the municipality where the subject of the complaint is also a council member. So code of conduct, this isn't very old. The province brought in a code of conduct. We of course have had discussions about code of conduct complaints levied against the mayor of Halifax and other councillors. And apparently, according to the article, anything that was filed before, I think it was October the 7th, will move forward because that would have been filed under the previous rules. But anything after October 7th just isn't going to happen. So if you have a serious complaint against your councillor, a councillor, the mayor, in any community, including HRM, the provincial rules that govern that no longer exist. Other new code of conduct changes include that council member may not submit a complaint on behalf of another person. So even if you go to your councillor and you say, "Hey, Councillor A, I think that Councillor B was out of bounds, and I think that we should. I'd like to put a code of conduct complaint against that councillor." You can't even do that. It has to be the council member that does it. Now, as you can imagine, municipal politicians not too upset about this. In fact, one of the people we talked to last week is the president of the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. That's Pam Mood. And she said that there were a number of municipalities across the province that saw a flood of complaints once this code went into effect last year. She said the province needs a standard definition for frivolous or vexatious, that's a big word, complaints, so independent investigators handling municipal complaints are all on the same page. This is her quote. "It may not always be this way, but for now, I think it was a brilliant move on the part of the province to say, you know what? We're going to get this right. We need to take a pause and see where we go." And that was a quote that Yarmouth Mayor and FCM President Pam Mood made to the CBC on Wednesday. That's something I think we're going to discuss when we open up the telephone lines. That's coming up at 11 o'clock today. We're going to take our first break here on the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. When we come back, Chief Operating Officer of the Apprenticeship Agency, Kim Kennedy, will be our guest. Nova Scotia now cutting the 5-year renewal requirement for most trade workers. We'll dig into that when we come back. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes.
Max.
Welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. It's the Thursday edition, or more appropriately called the Friday Eve edition of the show. Hope you're having a great day. We've been talking about trades, and we've been talking about particularly the construction trades as of late. And when this story came across my desk last week, I do believe it was, I thought, well, this is something that we should probably dig into. And this story, by the way, comes from our website, halifax.citynews.ca, and it reads, "The provincial government announced changes aimed at making it easier and cheaper to work in the skilled trades. Nova Scotia said it is eliminating the 5-year certification renewal requirement for journey persons in most trades. A move the province says is intended to save time, money, and paperwork. In addition, the province also reducing the fee required to challenge certification exams from $644 down to $350, and those changes take effect immediately. Please welcome to the show Chief Operating Officer at the Apprenticeship Agency, and that's Kim Kennedy. Kim, how are you?
Doing wonderful. Dan, happy to be here.
Thank you very much for spending some time with us today to maybe educate me a little bit more on this. Why was that 5-year recertification thing in place to begin with?
The recertification renewal has been in place since the 60s or 70s for our compulsory trades. So I'm quite sure the policymakers at the time had their reasons for putting that renewal in place. But we believe it's important to save trades professional time and money, so we've decided to remove that renewal.
So in the past, you would have to, was it a test or was it just a fee or what was it?
It was just fill out a form, submit your renewal request, pay a fee, and we issue you a new credential.
Right. So it's not like you're testing their knowledge of their trade. It's essentially was a paperwork thing.
You are correct. There was no retesting or no recertification required.
Is this going to make life easier for those that are working in the trades?
It will. It will save them time, no more paperwork to submit, and it will also save them money. So there was a 5-year cost to that renewal at just over $73, so that's money back in people's pockets as well.
And the province also reducing, as I mentioned in the preamble, the fee that's required for those challenge exams almost by half. I would imagine that that's going to get more people that are wanting to challenge the exam and get to work.
Yes, this is actually for experienced trades professionals who
Right.
don't have the benefit of certification.
Okay.
We call it our trade qualifier application. So there are many trades professionals in the province who have been doing highly skilled work for a long time, and we'd like to recognize that highly skilled work by reducing the fee to actually challenge and get the certification and recognition of that work.
This is, of course, part and parcel to other changes that the province has made in order to try and get skilled trades people into the province to help with some of our shortages, using recognizing certifications from other provinces.
Yes. So the Skilled Trades has a national program called the Red Seal program.
Right.
And the Red Seal program is in place in all provinces and territories in the country. Nova Scotia recognizes any skilled trades professional from any province with a Red Seal certification. And more recently, we've also started to recognize provincial trade certifications from Alberta and Quebec without any additional paperwork and approvals.
So is it that because those jurisdictions' training programs were similar to ours, or why just those two as opposed to all 10 provinces?
Well, so those were the two that we had reviewed at first. They are both
Right.
Those provinces are training those skilled trades professionals to the Red Seal standard. So it was to recognize the fact that they were being trained already to the Red Seal standard, despite the fact they don't have the Red Seal certification.
Kim, I hear a lot on this program from people that are out working on construction sites and working the skilled trades that there's a shortage of journey people out there, skilled trades people out there. Is that in fact the case? Are we still seeing a lot more demand than supply when it comes to people that have certifications?
Yes. I don't think it's a secret in the province that we do have a shortage of skilled trades professionals. And that's one of the reasons why we reduced the fees for those trade qualifier, because every person who challenges a trade qualifier exam can then mentor 3 apprentices and get them certified. And that means we'll be increasing the skilled trades workforce.
You mentioned apprentices, and of course they're the next generation of skilled trade workers and are working their way into the system. Kim, how are we doing with that pipeline? Are we seeing enough apprentices getting into the trades?
Yes, we've seen record numbers of new apprentices coming in over the last 3 years into the apprenticeship system as a result of the incentives to come into the system.
Right.
And the communication out to potential students in high schools that the skilled trades are a great career path, and people are listening and they're joining.
I hear that the trade schools are full.
Yes, the NSCC and many of the other training providers do have full classrooms in all of their pre-apprenticeship training programs in certain trades, but there are other high-demand trades that are not full. So we would encourage anybody who's looking to explore a skilled trade to visit exploretradesns.ca and take a look at all of the different types of trades that we have.
Kim, I also hear, I will say it's been a minute since I was on the job site, but I hear that that there's direct entry now too, where people are if their employer or an employer wants to take them on, they can essentially come off the street. Is that in fact true?
It is true, and that's actually not new. Individuals could always join an apprenticeship program without attending a college program first. What you need is an employer and a journey person willing to mentor you. And once you have that relationship intact, you join apprenticeship and go straight to work.
How long does it take?
It depends on the trade. So trades range from roughly 2 years to up to 4 years, depending on the curriculum standard and the training standard required. And
is it any shorter if you go through a trade school, if you go to NSCC, or as opposed to the direct entry system?
Well, I think it depends on how you would word that, because if you go straight to work, it would take you that 2 to 4 years. If you do a program at the NSCC, for example, you would be in that program for a year and then continue on. So the total amount of time is equal. However, we do recognize training from colleges coming into apprenticeship.
Kim, you may have already answered this question, but are employers actively seeking out apprentices?
They are. So we, like I said, we have record numbers of apprentices, and, apprentices must be working to register. So we know that employers are seeking those individuals out and hiring them.
It's interesting because I hear from people that own, and I hear a lot from the construction industry that are having a heck of a time just to get people to come to work for them.
We hear that as well. And that's why we've also announced a $10 million investment in the construction sector. So there's a new trades exhibition hall to encourage youth to explore the skilled trades. There's what we call enhanced direct entry programming, where individuals can just come and take short training to get them tools and safety ready to join the work site immediately.
Kim, I appreciate your time. Valuable information.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
That is Kim Kennedy, who is the Chief Operating Officer over at the Apprenticeship Agency, making it cheaper, taking away some of the red tape, and actively going out and seeking people and trying to get people to come into the trades. It is absolutely amazing the difference in the last 25 years to now, from when maybe I was a bit younger, and to be frank, was being kind of pushed away from pursuing a skilled trade because there was the work wasn't there. They were employers weren't taking on apprenticeships. It was just, hey, Dan, go learn computers. That's the future, right? And now I think that because of that we saw, maybe it was more than 25 years ago. Now we're in a bit of a bind, and not just a bit of a bind. I think we're in a big bind, and for an apprentice or an employer just to want to just get somebody started is a complete 180 from the way it was just not that long ago. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. When we come back, we're going to change things up just a little bit. We often say here on the program that we give a voice to the voiceless, right? For those that are trying to change the world or fight City Hall. But a group of people at Dalhousie University are giving a voice to the voiceless, but they're cows. I'll explain when we come back. So you can imagine when Vanessa and I are sitting down and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do and what guests we're going to bring onto the show, and some of the topics of the day that are pretty heavy, and finding different ways to get different voices on the air. Every once in a while, there's something that lands on my desk that I read and I kind of go, really? That's pretty interesting. And this is one of those cases. This release came across my desk earlier this week, and when I saw it, I had to reach out to the good people over at Dalhousie University and dig into this, because it's something that maybe you might not even think was possible. It reads like this. It's an innovation sparked by a simple yet quirky question. If cows could speak, would you listen? And if you did, could you decipher the meaning of their snorts and moos? A researcher at Dalhousie University was curious and explored the possibility of understanding bovine communication in a bid to improve both animal welfare and farming. His research has now resulted in a new app that can help farmers interpret their herd's sounds, or emotional fingerprints, which could make a difference between a healthy herd and thousands of dollars in losses. Very pleased to welcome to the program today to tell us a little bit about the language of the cow, and that is Dr. Suresh Neethirajan. How are you, Doctor?
Hi, good morning, Dan. Thanks for having me here.
The scientific mind to me is a marvel, because it's essentially, you ask a question and then you try and find an answer to it. And as I mentioned in the preamble, it must have been a rather interesting debate to dig into this if you could actually understand what cows were saying.
Yeah, exactly. Cows have been speaking all along. We just never had the dictionary until now. Moo logs basically fills that gap. Cows don't moo randomly. Every call carries emotion, certain intent, and sometimes early warnings of illness or distress. But for centuries, farmers had to rely on intuition alone. So the app we have developed, Moolog, changes that, turning sound into insight and insight into action.
So how does it work? First of all, how did you figure this out? Did you put on your rubber boots and grab a microphone and head out into the field?
Yeah, exactly. We've been traveling across over a dozen Atlantic Canadian dairy farms here in the province of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, and some in Ontario. The app is built from over 1,000 hours of field recordings. It has over 300 plus authentic vocalizations organized into 45 different categories, like a maternal call, a mother cow calling a calf, hunger signals, distress alerts. Even when she goes into heat, there is a estrus-related heat calls. Our app also has a part of interactive dashboard or a soundboard. So the users can tap and listen to the real voices of Holstein and Jersey cows. They can also do tests, like a quiz mode, test their ability to distinguish between, for example, if a particular cow is making, hey, I'm hungry, versus I'm in pain, or if the mother cow is calling a calf in a very affectionate manner, there is a possibility to learn how to distinguish and appreciate the meaning and the context behind each of those vocalizations and calls. So there are no recordings needed, no Wi-Fi is needed. It's very easy to listen and learn and appreciate the calls. It's like having a cow translator in your pocket, trained on real farm data, designed for real farm life.
You mentioned Holstein and Jersey cows are different breeds. Do they have a different language?
A little bit. Jerseys are a little more vibrant compared to Holstein. For example, we have observed that when Holstein tried to go into a milking parlor at a certain time, if Jersey is standing behind it, she will go and push the Holstein, and then she will take the turn. She will also make a specific call to demonstrate that superiority. So they have their own personalities, which is very clearly displayed, and we can distinguish them based on their vocalization calls.
So how does the app work? Do you record the sounds that the cow is making, and then it gives you is it an audio translation or is it a text translation?
So as of now, there are multiple different categories of calls.
Right.
So the app, we can listen to the different categories, mother cow cough call, frustration call. If there is a delay in the feeding that happens, they express that. If they are the hygiene protocol is not good enough, they try to express their dissatisfaction through the change in the pitch, amplitude, and frequency. So it's an app for a research-validated tool for studying bioacoustics, animal behavior, and digital agriculture for students and researchers. For farmers, by being able to distinguish, classify the different vocal categories, they can understand the detection of stress, pain, or illness even before visible symptoms appear. So at the end of the day, better welfare means healthier herds,
right,
a higher productivity, and lower veterinary costs. So a healthy herd begins with a listened heart. Moolog helps the farmers to hear what they have been missing. So it's more of a dictionary, a Duolingo in their packet,
right,
which they can listen and learn and appreciate the different calls from the cows.
It's got to be a game changer for farmers. They are always looking for, like, why is that cow making that noise, right?
Exactly, yeah. Because the early warning saves money. A stressed cow today might be a sick cow tomorrow. Moolog can help the farmer to catch the behavioral changes before they escalate, improving the welfare and protecting the bottom line.
Is this available to farmers now?
Yes, it is 100% free. It's funded by our federal government, Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada, a joint initiative between the Faculty of Computer Science and Faculty of Agriculture within Dalhousie University, and of course supported by the dairy farmers of Nova Scotia and the dairy farmers of New Brunswick. So anybody can download the app. It's a bridge between science and compassion by teaching farmers, students, and animal lovers to truly listen to the cows. We are not just improving the animal welfare, we are transforming how we as human beings, farmers, animal caretakers, fellow society, we understand the emotional lives of the dairy cows that feed us. Because in the end, compassion begins with listening.
The next step, Suresh, are we going to be able to talk to them?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the idea behind it. What we do is we use artificial intelligence, natural language processing, semantics, and linguistics to decode exactly what's going on in their lives. The end goal is to develop a translator. It's like a black box that can be installed in multiple locations, like a feeding station,
right,
water station, resting area. That black box would record all the calls and do the translation using natural language processing via artificial intelligence and tell the critical insights in the way farmers can appreciate in the English language. For example, it may look nonsensical, like a different moo calls based on the amplitude, frequency, and pitch behind it. But the AI has the ability to decode with respect to the context and say, hey, you know what, give me some space. I don't want to go for milking now. Give me 30 minutes.
All we need is for cows to tell us off, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the long-term goal. So for this particular app, we have been working on.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Awesome. I look forward to seeing it in action. Doctor, I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Dan.
That is Dr. Suresh Neethirajan, who is a computer programmer. He works at in addition to at the Department of Agriculture over at Dalhousie. That's all we need now. Is pretty soon, Vanessa, we're going to have cows calling us here on the program that are going to be upset with something I said. Anyway, you can really see the benefit. Like, I really truly believe I'm having a little fun with it, but you can really see the benefit to it, because as he said at the beginning of the it was always intuition, right? Oh, they're making that sound, so that usually means this. But now you're able to say, yeah, that's exactly what it means, or no, it just means something else. It's fascinating. I used to work with a at a radio station in Central Ontario. And the talk show host there, his name is Dave Carr. He's still kind of doing it. He's doing it part-time. But anyway, in a different life, he used to do a lot of reporting on the beef industry and the dairy industry in Central Ontario. And farmers would tell me, and with a dead straight face, when they listened to Dave Carr on the radio, they put it in the barn. Their cows would produce more milk. Now I guess we'll have to teach them to speak cow. Wow, fascinating. Going to stop and take a break. When we come back, I don't know how to segue into this one. We're going to focus on a show coming to Halifax. It's called the Atlantic Menopause Show. What it is and what we can expect with the co-founder of the Menopause Society of Nova Scotia, Shawna O'Hearn. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. Moo. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm still blown away by that last interview. That is the scientific mind at work, right? And Dr. Rob Thacker, who's here on Tuesdays, will tell you that's how science works, and that's how you come up with something that may be a little off the wall, and you dig into it and you try and figure out. And now this thing could be a game changer for farmers trying to figure out what's going on with their herds. It's wild. Anyway, welcome back to the program. I'm Dan Alstrand. The first ever Atlantic Menopause Show will welcome, and get this, a sold-out crowd to the Halifax Convention Centre tomorrow. Groundbreaking event offers Maritimers a dedicated space to learn about menopause, connect with leading experts, and discover practical resources to navigate this significant life stage. Very pleased to welcome to the program the co-founder of the Menopause Society of Nova Scotia, and that is Shawna O'Hearn. Shawna, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Tell me about the genesis of this. Why did we decide to have a conference focusing on menopause?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say a couple of things have emerged over the past couple of years. As you mentioned, I'm the founder of the Menopause Society of Nova Scotia, and that came because there's so little information out there around menopause. Women and colleagues were reaching out to myself and my colleague, Dr. Maria Migas, saying we need more information. So we've been hosting community conversations across Nova Scotia over the last 2 years, and there just wasn't enough time, and people said we need more. So we've collaborated with a group of people, and we're hosting this first conversation to create awareness, to build community, and to make sure people know what menopause is, to feel less stigmatized and isolated.
In preparation for the show, I talked to several of my colleagues and asked them about the importance of a show like this, and many of them described how debilitating this can be when you're going through menopause and the hot flashes and all of that stuff. It really is it's an impact on people's lives.
It really is, and we know so little about it, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Information is power. I mean, you just talked about that from your previous interviews, right? The more we know, the more informed we are, the less fear we have, the less isolated we feel. And for many women going through menopause, it's a long journey. We have this phase before menopause. It's called perimenopause. It can last from 7 to 10 years. And that time can be when we're at a critical time in our work as well, right? We're moving into senior positions. We have opportunities in our work life, as well as lots of things happening in our families and in our homes that make life very challenging for us. So having information is so powerful, so powerful.
You mentioned stigma, and there is a lot of stigma surrounding menopause. I mean, we don't even call it that. A lot of people just call it the change of life, right? And and when somebody's going through the various symptoms of it, it gets kind of dismissed as, oh well, it's just a change of life. But that, like I mentioned earlier, can really impact your life.
It really can. And you mentioned hot flashes, so that's the one that people often know so much about. But there's over 50 symptoms that are associated with menopause, and people don't know about them. They can be physical symptoms from joint pain to heart palpitations. We have lots of, there's also research that shows cognitive changes that are temporary. So things like brain fog, forgetfulness, not finding our words, as well as some mental health impacts. All of those pieces, people can have up to 7 symptoms at a time, ranging in severity over a duration of time as well. But we often only think about it as hot flashes, but there's so much more. And the more we know, the more we start to be able to identify what those symptoms are and start to look at lifestyle strategies to help us to manage them.
We're talking about the menopause show, and as I mentioned in the preamble, it's sold out. So obviously, there's a demand out there. What are people going to see? What are they going to learn during this event?
Yeah, so we have. We're very fortunate that we have Dr. Ardell Piper, who's an obstetrician gynecologist coming from Ottawa. She's going to talk about some of the myths around menopause, and then we have over 30 speakers from around the Maritimes who are coming to share their expertise. And we have every topic from fitness and nutrition to managing our sleep to cardiovascular health. How do we manage it in the workplace? What is the medication we should be thinking about? What about our pelvic health, our mental health, and even talking about sexual health? There are every topic you could imagine is going to be brought forward, as well as opportunities for the participants to share their own experiences, to learn from each other, to hear about the research that's happening, limited research, but the growing research in this field.
And part of this show, there's also going to be a bit of a trade show so people can get a look and their hands on some of the cutting-edge technology to help them through this through menopause.
Absolutely. We have some of the health foundations will be there, some community organizations, and a number of other leaders in the menopause space will be celebrating some of their work that they have. It's going to be fantastic.
So the event is sold out, am I correct?
It is sold out.
Wow,
congratulations. It is sold out. Yes, the first one, and lots of people asking when the next one is going to be. For those that are in Halifax that don't have tickets and are wanting to be part of menopause conversations, we are hosting 2 more menopause conferences in the community, one on November 18th and the other one in December 16th at 6:30 at the Spry Field, Captain Spry Public Library. And then on December 8th, we're going to be hosting the first Canadian documentary on menopause. It'll be at the Halifax Public Library at the Central Library at 6:30 on December 8th. So if you feel like you wish you were going to be joining us tomorrow, you didn't get a ticket, not to worry. There are other conversations and opportunities to engage with the community of practitioners and community members involved in menopause.
Dr. O'Hearn, is there information available on those other events on the Menopause Society site?
There is, and we'll be putting more advertisement up as soon as on Sunday after the conference is over. But msns.ca, reach out to us, and we will be promoting events that we will be hosting, but others that we hear in the region as well.
Shawna, I appreciate your time. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
That is Dr. Shawna O'Hearn, one of the co-founders of the Menopause Society of Nova Scotia, the first ever here menopause show. Sold-out event is kicking off tomorrow, and I would imagine with it being as popular as it is that this is probably the first of many moving down the line. We're going to stop. Time to take a break, get an update on the news. On the other side of it, it's time to open up those telephone lines, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues after the news.
Halifax.
All right. If you were listening to the top of the show today, I was talking about something I think will probably be the center of discussion today here on the open hour, and that is the changes to the code of conduct. I had said that I had thought that this came as part of one of these multiple omnibus legislation, but it in fact didn't. This was a release that was sent out by the province on the 7th of October, and it was by itself. I'm going to read this to you, and I apologize for taking up some of the time, but I think it's important because I think I want to center the discussion on what's not in here. Right? This is the release. It reads, this is from Municipal Affairs. The province is making changes to the Code of Conduct for elected officials to address feedback from municipalities about the complaints and the investigation process. Quote, we work closely with our municipal partners to develop a code of conduct to provide elected officials with guidance on procedural standards and the level of professionalism expected of them, said John Lohr, Minister of Municipal Affairs. Quote, based on the feedback received from municipalities, we're refining the language to enhance its clarity, reduce the administrative burden, and to protect against potential misuse. The release goes on to read, amendments to the regulations clarify that 1. Complaints may be made by a council member related to the conduct of another elected official in the same municipality. 2. Council members may not submit a complaint on behalf of another person or entity. 3. Multiple complaints may not be submitted by a council member on the same subject. The release goes on to say when multiple complaints have been received about the same subject, the investigator must consolidate the complaints into a single investigation where appropriate. The changes do not apply to complaints in investigations already in progress. Now in effect, the changes will address the immediate needs of municipalities while discussions to strengthen and refine the administration of the Code of Conduct continue. It ends by saying the province has committed to conducting a full review of the framework in 2027. Now, the CBC article on the same subject matter today says that Nova Scotia residents can no longer file complaints about their municipal officials, a move one advocate is calling dangerously undemocratic. Last Tuesday, the province said it stemmed from feedback, as I read earlier. The changes, as I read earlier, said that the complaint can only be made by a member of a council in a municipality where the subject of the complainant is also a council member, and they cannot issue a code of conduct complaint on behalf of somebody else. So you and I are out in the cold. Is this going to be forever? Probably not. But when government talks about changing legislation that it's already passed, it doesn't happen immediately. So my understanding, and some of the press reporting on this that I have read, is that if you have a complaint against your councillor, you have no recourse through the provincial government code of conduct anymore until they make some changes at an expected date unknown to me. This just feels like it was a failure on behalf of the government who brought this legislation in a year ago, and B, if you got a problem with your councillor, what do? 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's begin the open hour with Carl. Carl, how are you?
Very well. Thank you very much. Well, we do have an outlet. We got 95.7. We can talk about whatever's going on right here.
Perfect. Love it.
Cow stories. Oh, my gosh. My mom grew up in a small town outside of Amqui in Quebec. Anyway, they had 77 cows and 1 bull. And, boy, I'll tell you, I used to go volunteer over there and help out, when I was visiting, because I was born and raised in Florida, but I used to go up there during the summertime, right? Visit my grandparents. It was like going back in time. And they still had a wood-burning stove, the whole deal, right?
Cool.
120-year-old house. Anyway, and so I had a lot of fun with those cows until I had 2 5-gallon buckets of milk. I'm 9 years old, right? And I slipped and you-know-what.
Yep.
And it sat right in it, man, and I didn't spill a drop. But then I had to walk all the way back to my grandma's house with mess on my pants. Every time I run someone in on the sidewalk, I was turning the other way. I didn't want them to see my butt.
Right, I hear you.
Mess. Oh, my gosh.
Cool.
Anyway, interesting story. I was an outsider, right? So everybody, they bring all the cows in, and then the bull is in there too, right? He goes in with everybody else. And all the family members, all my cousins, everybody, they'd rub his head and stuff. And I did the same thing, and I was wearing a red sweatshirt.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and I rubbed his head, and he's like, "You're an outsider. Who are you?" He got out, and I had to escape through milk thistle. I mean, Yeah, 12 feet tall. I ran way back like 20 feet into that, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, this bull wanted me, man, bad.
Those bulls are mean, that's for sure.
Anyway, and then on the trades, I grew up in the trades.
Yeah.
Real quick. During high school, I was working real high-class restaurants in Dallas, and I'm a dual citizen, right? Mm-hmm. I live right here in Halifax. But anyway, so I was making good money, like $200 or $400 a night, man, in these joints and stuff. And then I got let go because there was business owners were changing, whatever, and they brought in their own staff. And so then these guys were installing floors in my house, at my mom's house. And they're like, well, he needs a job. He's in between jobs right now. They're like, yeah, we'll hire you. So they hired me $6 an hour. They quickly bumped me up to $7, and they quickly bumped me up to $8, and they taught me everything to know about the flooring trade. Mm-hmm. And after a year and a half of experience, if you do flooring, out of all the trades, okay, you don't get paid by the hour. You get paid by the piece. Just like wallpaper hangers, yep. Wallpaper guys, it's by the square foot. And so, you come in, you make $200 or $300, and you're gone. Your job's done, and all these other guys that are working by the hour. So anyone who wants to get into the flooring trade, they're always looking for people. It's just endless, and you can advance so fast. And so I was making $120,000 a year after just a year and a half of training, U.S. dollars, and I contracted in Canada. I was building houses for Indians and all that. But anyway, so it's a great trade. I encourage people to get into the flooring trade, anything that pays by the piece, because then you're not working by the hour. And the faster and better work you do,
more money you make.
You never run out of work, and you make more money than any other trade. It's crazy. Yeah.
Carl, man, I appreciate it.
All right, how you doing? You treated me well.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Lots to talk about. The cow story was a lot of fun, but I think if you dig into that, I think it's just the next innovation to add to Carl's story. Carrying milk buckets and 120-year-old houses. Well, the houses still exist, but if you've been on a dairy farm lately, you'll notice that there is an awful lot of technology that's involved in it now, and this is just another piece. I'm blown away by it that we're at the point now where we can hold our phone up to a herd and it can tell us what it's thinking and how it's feeling. It's wild. We're going to stop, take a break. The open hour continues on the other side. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes.
Facts.
Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. It's the Thursday, or as we like to call it, the Friday Eve edition of the program. It's the open hour. The lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. One of the topics of discussion today, the province last week changed the rules on how you can complain under the Code of Conduct about your counselor. Do you remember when this came in? This was hyped as being a way to hold counsel to account, right? This was a way that if you had an issue with the way that a councillor or a mayor was doing business, was going about their jobs, you could file a complaint, and then it would be there'd be an independent investigation, and then there would be an outcome. I didn't like the outcome because it went back to council, and council would take a look at it behind closed doors, and then they would they'd be responsible for doling out the punishment. So they would essentially censure themselves, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. But on Tuesday of last week, a nondescript, I read it for you earlier, press release from the province of Nova Scotia and from the minister responsible, John Lohr. And now, at least from my limited knowledge of the law, and others who have written about it, it appears that the option for an individual to complain about a counselor is no longer there. A counselor can lodge a complaint against a counselor, but can't lodge that complaint for somebody else. So if I reach out to my counselor and say, hey, I didn't like what that council person said or is doing or did, they can't file that complaint on my behalf. Just feels like it's another level of accountability that is being repealed from you and I. And as the story said on the CBC article, it feels undemocratic to me. Does it feel undemocratic to you? 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Nicole.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I figured you were going to call today.
Oh, my. Well, at the top of the hour, your flabbers sounded as gasted as mine when I read this. My goodness. This kind of sounds like when Houston tried to get rid of the Auditor General, hey?
Right. Kind of the same thing. And it kind of, the release was so ambiguous that, you really didn't raise a flag until somebody really dug into it and went, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. So I wasn't going to talk about this, but I'm going to now because I think we're in a matter of public trust and public safety at this point.
Okay.
And I was happy to see that they said that they're still going to investigate everything prior to October 7th.
Which was under the old rules, yes.
Which was under the old rules. So at a very high level, without getting into specifics, on September 13th and September 14th, respectively, I filed code of conduct complaints, both against every sitting member of council, including the deputy mayor and the mayor, and senior administrators and senior solicitors. They're parallel complaints. Now, the complaint that I filed against council was a 17-page complaint with 115 pages of evidence, and the complaint against administration and solicitors was 22 pages with 115 pages of evidence.
Nicole, before we go any further, are you, or I guess, were you able to file a complaint against a non-elected person under this code of conduct? I'm not really sure how that worked. Is that sort of the vehicle that you used for these two complaints?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Because of the scope of this complaint and how large it was, I also ensured that it was brought to the attention of the Minister of Municipal Affairs, the Auditor General of Nova Scotia, and on recommendation of the Auditor General of Nova Scotia, I also brought it to the HRM Auditor General.
Okay.
So I made sure there was mass coverage on this, specifically because the complaint against council was for 4 sections of Code of Conduct and 7 provisions of the Charter and the MGA, and the complaint against administration solicitors was for 4 Code of Conduct provisions and 17 sections of the Charter and the MGA. It was not a small complaint. And it's quite in-depth, and it also involves another department and minister inside of Tim Houston's cabinet. It goes in multiple directions. And one day I will talk about this, I promise.
Okay.
But the reason I brought it to the attention of those specific people has to do with that provision where the complaint has to go back to council for them to, the investigation goes back to council for them to then adjudicate and sanction themselves. And my question has always been, they can't do that. Now, when there's 1 or 2, it still looks shady, but when it's all of them, how do they all look at their own investigation?
Well, that's just it. Like, that was what I was sitting here. I wrote it down on my notepad in front of me. If on a complaint, and I know you don't want to go into the specifics, and I appreciate that, and I won't put you in a position you don't want to be. But that being said, if the complaint is against the entirety of council, as I understand the legislation, at least as before last Tuesday, was that it goes to an independent investigator, and then the independent investigator digs into it, and then it goes to council for any kind of disciplinary action that we would never know about because it's behind closed doors.
Exactly, and it only becomes publicly available once they have decided how to discipline themselves.
Right.
And so I brought it to Minister Lohr, and I brought it to his attention, and I ensured the Auditor Generals were in there because I'm like, this is a massive problem in your procedure.
Right.
And under Section 454 and 455 of the Municipal Government Act, you have the ability as minister to order an independent audit, review, and inquiry. I'm not asking him to get involved in the actual investigation, but when it comes time to hand that investigation back, you don't put it back into the hands of the people that are being investigated. That's like the most ridiculous thing.
Right.
And his immediate response to me was, hey, just bring it to the Office of the Ombudsman if you don't like the process. And I'm like, no, that's not what I just asked you. I asked you to use your authority under these sections to order an independent audit and review. And then his response was to come back to me and tell me that if you believe the HRM is in violation of the legislation, you may want to obtain independent legal advice to explore your legal options in this matter. To which, again, I went, no, that is now a subrogation of your responsibility under the MGA. And now we're looking at an abdication of your authority of office, because you may have discretionary powers under Section 454 and 455 to order this audit, but you don't get to put that financial and legal responsibility back on the citizen when you have the power to act. This is what I was talking about with subrogation last week. So that last correspondence, which the minister's office has still not responded to, so if they're listening to me like, hey, I'd love a response on this, was October 2nd. And so
5 days later, they changed the rules.
5 days later, coincidence. 5 days later, they changed the rules. But right now, we have the entirety of the HRM in terms of counsel. And it's been confirmed by both the clerk and the minister's office that the third-party investigation is underway.
That was my question. So where are we at with that? So it is.
I know it's.
Sorry.
It's under investigation, and all I know is that they have 6 months to conclude the matter.
Right.
So from the moment that they received it, it had to go to the third-party investigator, and then counsel would have to provide their ruling on it within 6 months. So I'm looking at March of 2026 before this is actually put to bed, which is why I don't want to talk about the details, because I don't want that to become an issue.
I appreciate that, and I think our listeners appreciate that too. It's the quote unquote before the courts thing, right?
Absolutely. But in terms of structure, I think this is really important. And now that this has happened, I think it's more, when I heard you this morning, I'm like, oh, I'm absolutely calling today. Because now we're looking at a matter of public trust and public safety on this issue. And I'm just looking at the timeline of events that have happened between September 13th and 14th and now October 7th. And I'm just seeing too many things that don't make sense. And when you have an investigation of this size, and the other issue too is for Minister Lohr to actually step in and do something about my particular complaint, it would actually cause an issue with another department and minister in the cabinet. And under cabinet solidarity, I don't know that he can do that. So there's like this weird rock and a hard place in this particular case that seems to span the HRM and Tim Houston's cabinet. And this is not a good look right now. It's really not a good look. And I'm so happy that the Auditor General has been copied on this entire process and that I've ensured that they're in there, as well as the clerk of the Municipal Council and the clerk of the Executive Council, to ensure this is being really well recorded everywhere and available on the public record, maybe unless it gets wiped somehow. But this is... The fact that this is happening right now in Nova Scotia should be deeply, deeply, deeply concerning for people, that the government, the provincial government, which we've said has been in conflict, I've been saying has been in conflict with the municipality on many levels, has now stepped in to exercise this power to take mechanisms away from citizens instead of using that same power to actually ensure that investigations like mine are properly vetted. And to Pam Mood, who has questions about what frivolous and vexatious looks like, there's something called the Black's Law Dictionary. It's been used for over 100 years. Courts rely on it, lawyers rely on it, law schools rely on it. The words frivolous and vexatious are very well defined. I don't know why they need additional policy on this, considering that in the HRM, MC Advisory is one of their most prominent third-party investigators, which is a branch of McGuinness Cooper, which is full of lawyers who understand what frivolous and vexatious is. And for anyone who doesn't know, Vexatious is when you're bringing an action against someone that's considered bona fide. Bona fide means not in good faith, and that you're doing it to basically annoy or embarrass whoever you're bringing it against. And I know that those claims are being made on a regular basis, but they're not that hard to identify. You don't need to take 2 years to build additional policy to define frivolous and vexatious when they are words that are very well defined in the legal realm, and they're using legal adjacent investigators to do this work.
Nicole, Court of a Public Opinion, always available to you on this. Appreciate you joining us today.
I appreciate that, Dan. Have a great day.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues after the news. Welcome back. This is the open hour, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. You can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about on the open hour. That's the beauty of it. However, a lot of discussion already today on this change by the province to limit the ability, if not outright stop the ability of ordinary people like you and I from lodging a complaint against regional council under the Code of Conduct. Got an email from District 15 councillor, that's Billy Gillis. He writes, "Hey Dan, listening to the show, want to clarify some facts. When a code of conduct is filed, it's sent to an outside investigator first to see if it warrants merit to go forward. If it is deemed that a complaint has merit, it is then investigated by a third party, usually a law firm or former investigators. And once the report's complete, it comes back to council for potential action." I hope this helps to explain the process. That from District 15 Councillor Billy Gillis. I know that there's 17 elected members of municipal council, and I know that many of them, including Councillor Gillis, are listening to the show, and I'm very curious as to what you think. Is this a brilliant move? Is this a good idea, like the president of the council or the FCM, the Federation of Municipalities? Pam Mood is, of course, the mayor of Yarmouth, said in the article that I read to you earlier. She said this was a good move to stop this, to stop these frivolous complaints until we get the legislation right. Is this a good move? What do you think? 902-405-6000. By the way, councillors, the lines are open. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. David's been on hold for a long time. David, I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all. I don't mind at all. Interesting subject you had on there earlier about the cows.
Did you like that?
Oh, I loved it, especially when you said that one of the farmers had the station and hooked up in the barn house.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's good. It was a very moving experience.
Oh, you've been holding that one for 30 minutes, David.
Oh, you have no idea.
What's on your mind?
The council thing is going to go on forever and a day. Nobody's going to get anything straightened around.
Right. You don't think that they're going to fix this legislation?
You got the deficit going up. You got inflation hitting in. Mm-hmm. Everything's so expensive out there.
Right.
And it's going to take forever and a day.
Fair enough.
All right, but the cow, right on. What's next? Chickens?
Oh, my goodness. Dogs. Vanessa wants dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That would be very interesting. What they're going to have to do is get probably AI involved and whatever certain sound. Oh, and make cell phones for the cows to call in.
Oh, boy.
You guys have to go to cow school.
There you go. David, you're full of them today. I appreciate it, sir.
Oh, yeah, and whenever you and Vanessa have tickets for the Mooseheads,
yeah,
be the first cow to go into a building. Because you won tickets off for the game that night.
David, have a fantastic day. Appreciate it. Put a smile on my face.
You too. I bet you Todd's probably just rolling around all
I'm
over
sure he is. All right, appreciate it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's just what we need, is for the cows out in the pasture to find a way to call the program and join the conversation. Who knows? Maybe it'll spur conversation. Vanessa's just shaking her head. No, we don't need that. Let's welcome Danny to the program. Danny, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind today?
There's going to be a meeting in Eastern Passage on Monday at 6:30 down by the boardwalk in the little museum that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for people to come in and express any concerns they have regarding, they're going to be building 2 large buildings for housing, which is great, in Eastern Passage.
Where?
The only problem is...
Where are they building them, Danny? Do you know?
Well, one of them is going to be on the water beside housing, and they're trying to change the height restrictions so that they can build like a 7-story building right beside a 1-story home.
Oh, my goodness.
And there's plenty of room in Eastern Passage to build things. And it doesn't affect me directly, but it could affect me or anyone else down the road, because once the rule is changed, it's changed for everyone. And your house, well, that's your main investment in your life.
Your biggest
and no
investment.
No one's going to buy a house that's in between 7-story buildings. Are you crazy? You would have no sunlight. I mean, how is that healthy? Are we building a ghetto? I think it's very, very inconsiderate of people who already live there. Just there's plenty of room. Build it in Eastern Passage. Just don't build it between houses.
So that meeting is at 6:30 on Monday, you said, right?
6:30 Monday, and it's down in the museum by the boardwalk.
Well, I hope those are listening out there that are impacted will join you, Danny. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you. And it didn't make the Beacon, and there's no excuse for that.
Oh, dear. Well, it made the Todd Veinotte show.
There you go. Thank you.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues after the break. All right, welcome back. This is the open hour, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Your opportunity to talk about whatever it is on your mind, but the conversation centering today on a move by the province that limits your ability, in fact, pretty much cuts off your ability to complain about your regional councillors under the Code of Conduct. I'm curious as to what you think about that. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Tim to the show. Tim, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, I'd be interested to know who introduced the legislation, who seconded that sort of thing, but I'm not sure why, because it appears like, the councillors, and I'll use another term, but it appears like the councillors have immunity now. There's very little you can do if you're neglecting their duties and responsibilities, and that's truly unfortunate. It seems to be that it protects 17 people, and everybody else possibly could be adversely affected. I'm not sure why, but at the end of the day, if you're an elected official, they should be held accountable. And if you can't file a complaint, then I agree that complaints should have substance. That's another issue. But if there is an issue of substance, you should have the right to bring it forward as a constituent.
Well, that's just it. And what the complaint of substance or substance of the complaint is would vary on opinion, right? Like if you're upset at a council decision, then that's one thing. But if the issue is egregious, then you should have the ability to raise a complaint, and it should be acted on, and it shouldn't be council that decides on the punishment.
100%. But basically, a councillor could get elected today, and he or she could sit back and do very little, if not nothing. And there's very little that a constituent now can do because of this legislation, and that's truly unfortunate. Because I'm not sure how, other than when you come up for a re-election,
right,
where you're held accountable.
Yeah, that's always been the caveat, right? Well, you get held to account every 4 years, but that's a long time between elections.
Well, it's truer now than it's ever been.
Right. Absolutely. Hey, Tim, I appreciate it, sir.
Thanks.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. The legislation wasn't the greatest to begin with, right? It wasn't the best method, but at least it was something. And when those complaints get filed and they're adjudicated, for lack of a better term, as Councillor Gillis told us, it gets investigated, and then if it's deemed to be warranted, then it goes to a third party, and then that comes back to council, and then council considers the penalty. Not the best system at all, in my opinion. But that being said, at least there was a system. Now, currently, there is not. And I know that there's some well-meaning counselors, and it's just not just HRN. This is right across the province. I know there's some well-meaning counselors out there that if they see something that they think is out of bounds, have the ability to file a code of conduct complaint, but maybe not as easily done when you're one of in our case 17 that sit across from each other every day, right? Because we know that there are when you're trying to get something done, you need support, right? You need other counselors to support your motion, or you'll never get anything done. And I wonder how that all rolls out. The part about it that really upsets me, other than the fact that I can't complain about my counselor anymore, is that if I see something or I believe something's going on there that's out of bounds, I can't go to my elected representative in my district and say, hey, look, I think that this counselor's out of line, and I think that violates the code of conduct, and I'd like to, like you, on my behalf, to file a complaint. You can't even do that. It's written right in the legislation that you can't do that. The counselors cannot file complaints on behalf of somebody else. That just doesn't feel democratic at all, does it? 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. I got to share this story with you. Vanessa and I chat a lot during the time in between commercials. And if you were listening to that last commercial break, I think it was an A&W ad or something where you can't get a haircut for $6 or whatever it is. And I said, well, I can, because, well, those of you that saw us down at the birthday celebration on Friday know that I'm follically challenged, right? I don't go to the barber anymore. It's really not worth it. But Vanessa was telling me that she still does, and maybe I'm just naive, but Vanessa, you were saying that you got a couple of quotes to get your hair done, right?
Yeah.
And some of those quotes came back at what? $350?
$350 was the most expensive. Yeah. But I have really long hair that goes right down my back.
Right.
So for me to get my hair cut, colored, washed, and everything, at this particular salon was around like $350 that they quoted me. Yeah. So, I mean, it depends on each salon, but that one was the worst.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Like, and I will attest that Vanessa does have very long hair, and I'm extremely jealous.
Yes, you are.
Because I don't have any. But that being said, that much money for a haircut in all colors, but so what?
A Rogers rate.
That's twice that's happened.
I know.
There's a gremlin in the machine.
It's a ghost. Halloween's coming. That's what's happening.
That's exactly what it is. And that's not like out of the ordinary. That's not anything that is I've heard, because I don't have any. But I've heard that it's hundreds of dollars for women to get their hair cut.
Oh, absolutely. And just dyeing my hair, it would be even more. If I decided to do a highlight or if anything else, would be more.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild. Well, keep us in the loop. I was telling you off the air, I've got some tin snips in the truck. I'll cut it off for you.
Oh, that's what my daughter said. She said, I have scissors and I could do this. And I'm like, I'm not really sure how I feel about that. But at the same time, I really could use a haircut.
Right? Because soon it's going to be dragging on the floor.
It really is, though.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. The struggle is paramount. Wow. And hers isn't the only case of that I've heard. That it's hundreds of dollars to get haircuts, hundreds of dollars to make that happen. And it's in today's world, right? We were talking about affordability yesterday, right? And we were talking about things going up in price and things not ever coming down in price. And that's wild. I guess as men that we are, we're kind of lucky in that sense, right? The last time I went to the barber, and it was a long time ago, I think it was $25 or $30, and I thought that was too much money. So I just cut my own now. But that's wild. Wow, $350. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Email from Rob says Houston's latest move to limit Democratic accountability follows a pattern of most of these similar attempts. He puts out as temporary measure or as a quote-unquote trial balloon and waits to see how much negative feedback he gets from the public. If the public is too hot, he changes course. And if people are complacent, he carries on with this initiative. That comes to us from Rob, and I don't think you're off the mark at all, Rob. I think you're right on the money. We saw it with the Auditor General. We saw it, and again, this is a little bit inside baseball, but we saw it with the media, right? The tradition of scrumming cabinet ministers after question period has been a long-standing tradition at the legislature. Last session, not this previous 8-day session, I think it was the 10-day session before that, there was a push to have media go across the street to the press gallery and have their time with ministers there, as opposed to having the ability to do it right away. That policy was changed. It just feels like this is the playbook, right? This is what we do. Hey, let's try this. But on the other side of it, isn't it weird? Because I mean, the premier has had a pretty public spat with regional council here, at least in HRM, right? Moore Street, regional plan, now this special planning zone. I know, I get that the special planning zone is a temporary measure, but interesting that all of a sudden these rules changed, and kind of without warning, and kind of under the radar. I read the release to you. If you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't be outraged, right? Getting ready to stop here and take a break. The show continues for Hour 3. We've got a busy Hour 3 planned for you today. We've been talking about universities a lot here on this program, and some of the changes that are impacting universities. It was part of the discussion that we had yesterday dealing with immigration, and one of the tools that the federal government used to address the housing shortages in cities was to limit the number of international students that were permitted to come to universities across Canada. Of course, we have a number of universities here, so that will impact Halifax. How much? Well, the Atlantic Association of Universities did a survey of enrollments, and I can tell you that enrollments are down across the province, not by as much as I had suspected, but they're down. And a big chunk of that is a lack of international students, and universities will tell you that international students help them to finance their programming, because they charge out of province and international students more than they charge for tuition local students or provincial students. We're going to have a conversation with the executive director of the Association of Atlantic Universities. That's Peter Halpin. He'll be joining us in the 12 o'clock hour. And when we come back, because it's lunchtime and because you're hungry, we're going to tell you about a new cookbook that's coming out. Nourish Nova Scotia is launching the book called What's for Lunch? And we'll find out what's on the menu with the executive director at Nourish Nova Scotia. That's Aimee Gasparetto. When we come back, you're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. We line up a show, we go through all the stuff that's going on. We get all kinds of releases and all kinds of people saying, hey, this person's available, or we go through what's happening, what's in the news, what you heard from Mark, and those kind of things, and see how we can expand or put some perspective on the news events of the day. And sometimes when Vanessa puts these things together, I think she does it on purpose, that she puts the food segments that we do on this show right around the lunchtime, right? So that you're sitting there, you're having your sandwich, or you're having lunch, and you can listen to the Todd Veinotte Show And it kind of is complimentary. It's like a good glass of red wine, right? But I don't get the opportunity a lot to eat my lunch until after the show is over. So when we get to the third hour, Dan's getting a little hungry in here, and Vanessa puts these things here, and I give her grief for it. But she's the best. She absolutely is. And the reason why I am talking about this is that our next segment is focusing on, and I don't know if this was an intended consequence or an unintended consequence of a provincial program that is helping a lot of kids across Nova Scotia, and that is, of course, the school lunch program. We know that kids in elementary, middle, and junior high schools across the province are getting meals from a wide variety of menus, except for cauliflower. And the reason why is because the minister didn't like the cauliflower. I'm making that up. But he said he didn't like cauliflower. But anyway, this program is helping a lot of people here in Nova Scotia at school, because kids learn better when their bellies are full. That's a well-known fact. But this comes from a partner of that program, and that organization is called Nourish Nova Scotia. And they've put together a new cookbook, because you always have room for another cookbook in the pantry. This one's called What's for Lunch? Nova Scotia Recipes to Cook and Enjoy Together. Very pleased to welcome to the show the executive director over there at Nourish Nova Scotia. That's Aimee Gasparetto. Aimee, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Intended consequence or unintended consequence that you've decided to come out with a cookbook that is very close or similar to some of the things that kids are eating in the school lunch program?
I would say it's intended, but it became intended after the program launched.
Right.
So, and the school lunch program is another initiative that's happening in schools right now around school food. It's really building on more than a decade's work of school breakfast programs being implemented across the province. A lot of schools have snack programs, and many students in schools are sort of doing their own youth-led food initiatives. And so the school lunch program is another initiative that's happening in schools to really bring nutritious food to kids as part of their school day. And so when the program launched, Nourish Nova Scotia has been involved in school food work for so many years, but this was really a momentous thing in our province and something to be proud of. And we thought, how do we build on the momentum of this, but also really connect it to our mission, which is really about inspiring youth to get in the kitchen and to learn about food. And so we were hearing lots of different things about the program, but what we weren't hearing is a lot of the stories and the people who are behind school food programs in Nova Scotia. And so when I say that, I mean where the recipes come from. The food producers, the truck drivers, the caterers. Like, there are so many people across this province that have contributed ideas and are contributing to literally the implementation of this program. So the What's for Lunch cookbook was both a celebration of, like, we have this now and let's celebrate it and be proud of it, but also let's help to tell the story in perhaps a way that people don't already know. So we're really excited about it. It's got lots of recipes that are on the school lunch program menu, but also other ones from breakfast programs across the province. Folks may not know, but there is a lunch program at Northumberland Regional High, and students there came up with their own soup recipe, and it's a favorite. And so we put that in the book. And so there's all kinds of recipes and stories in here that we're trying to highlight. It's like homework, right? You get to eat this stuff at school, and then you take your books home, and then you get to cook for mom and dad. Totally. And I mean, it's like, oh, well, like, will kids want to eat, at home what they're eating at school? And only time will tell. But I think the idea is, like, we know that when kids get in the kitchen and they get to select, ingredients and they get to put them together in their own way and they get to make what they're eating. It's a completely different experience with food. And so that's really the intention behind this, even though we're getting served something at school. To make it at home is really different, and to make it with our families is also a really different experience. And so we hope that's what people will take home with the book.
It's a long-standing tradition in my family that we cook together, right? Everybody kind of does their thing in the kitchen, and we maybe have a beverage or two while we're doing it, and get a chance to talk and to learn and figure out how to do this stuff. Because to be quite honest, there's less and less people that are apt to cook rather than to grab the phone and get the delivery service, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's true, and there's so many reasons for that, and, whether that's busy schedules or a matter of household budgets. And one of the things we've tried to do with this book is make it very adaptable. So whatever recipe's in there, you can swap things out, you can add your own things, you can change recipes in little ways that make them sort of align with what your family wants to eat. And for us, that's really what it's about. Like, food is about eating, but it's also about learning and sharing and discovering things together. And as you say, I mean, if it just means, one young person and their parent coming together to explore something new, like, we've succeeded. So we'd be really happy with that. And the other thing I'll say about the book is it is a fundraiser for school food programs.
Right.
So all of the proceeds of this cookbook will go right back into school food programs in Nova Scotia, including breakfast, lunch, snack. That could be garden programs. There's all kinds of things that are happening in schools, some of which we are connected to, and this book is really to support those things.
The online launch has already happened. It's out there. You can check that out at the Nourish Nova Scotia website. The official book launch itself goes on Sunday at the Halifax Brewery Market. I know people like to have the book in their hands, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and as you say, so let me just reiterate. So the book is going to be available in digital and print, and that's fully accessible on our website. It's also going to be available in French come January, so folks can keep an eye out for that. And as you say, yes, so we are celebrating the launch of the cookbook with an event called Nourish Fest. As you say, happening this Sunday, October 19th at the Brewery Market. And I mean, in terms of what people can expect, it's going to be a very sort of fun, activity-filled afternoon with hands-on workshops like art making, delicious food, some of which will be samples from the school lunch program, like mac and cheese, chicken shawarma, French toast. There's going to be local food organizations, lots of fun for families, and certainly, a place to buy a copy of our book. We are also going to have our new Grow, Eat, Learn trailer at the event, and this is like a mobile program trailer that moves around the province, and again, is really about inspiring and sort of equipping young people to learn about food. So we're going to be making some kale chips with the trailer, learning to plant garlic, all kinds of stuff, and the event is entirely free. So everyone is welcome to come. Folks can register online or not, just show up, and it's going to be a big celebration.
Aimee, best of luck. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to thumbing through the book.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
That is Aimee Gasparetto, Executive Director at Nourish Nova Scotia. In the press release, there's a sample of what this is. It's built for kids, I think, but maybe those that are not super handy in the kitchen. You get an opportunity to make some stuff, and it's not really difficult. That is my biggest pet peeve with cook. Let's face it, I'm not a chef, but when you get a complicated recipe or procedure in a cookbook, it's a turnoff to me. But these are very simple. Your kids can do them. You can do them. You can do them with your kids. And get to eat some. Oh, she's talking about mac and cheese and French toast. I'm hungry. Let's see if I can go rustle up something to eat. We're going to take a break. When we come back, what's happening with enrollments at universities in Atlantic Canada, the executive director of the Association of Atlantic Universities. That's Peter Halpin. He'll be your guest. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes.
Facts.
All right, welcome back. This release came across my desk yesterday. It reads, international student enrollments across Atlantic universities have been further badly eroded by federal government policies affecting the recruitment of those students to the region. Enrollments of international students across Atlantic universities have declined by nearly 28%, or just over 6,400 year over year. Overall enrollments of domestic and international students, that's undergraduate and graduate, have declined 4.4%, or 4,229 year over year. Please welcome to the program to give us a little bit of perspective on this, the executive director of the Association of Atlantic Universities, and that is Peter Halpin. Peter, how are you?
I'm very well, Dan, and yourself?
I am well, sir. We've kind of talked about this on several occasions about the impact that the international students and the changes that the federal government instituted surrounding international students, but now we have some kind of raw data to back up some of your concerns.
Well, we do, Dan. Yesterday we released our preliminary enrollment data for all the universities in Atlantic Canada. I know your audience is Nova Scotia, so I can also talk about that a little bit if you like.
Sure.
But the overall impact of the federal government's policies are really being disproportionately felt in Atlantic Canada. So if we look at the loss of international students last year, combined with the number that we lost this year, which you just mentioned, it's about a 36% decline over 2 years. Almost 9,500 students lost to our universities. And they're not just lost for 1 year. These students typically would, during their undergraduate and graduate studies, could be for here as long as 6 years in our universities. So the loss of that many students has a profound impact on our universities, but it has a profound impact on the region as well.
What kind of impact does it have on a university, Peter? Because as I think I mentioned earlier, that an international student brings more money to the university, do they not?
They do, Dan. The international students, because they're non-Canadian, not tax-paying Canadians, pay a premium to attend a public university in Canada, and so that's applicable to all of our universities in Atlantic Canada. So there's no doubt about it. It's a very substantial revenue stream for our universities, and quite frankly, one that our universities have become slightly more dependent upon than the universities in the rest of the country. On average, we have a higher percentage of international students in Atlantic Canada, about 30% of enrollment versus about 20% in other parts of the country. So as we've indicated in our announcement yesterday, there's really been a disproportionate impact on Atlantic Canada and its universities.
Do you have any further numbers on how it's impacting Nova Scotia?
I sure do. So in Nova Scotia, looking again, this is just international students. This past year, we lost, almost 4,700 international students. That's a decline, a year-over-year decline of about 38%. That is a real hit to our universities across the province. And, and again, Dan, it's more than just the universities that are being impacted here. Atlantic Canada, as I'm sure you know, has the fastest aging and dying population in the region and a very low birth rate. So international students, and we know from our own research among international students that over 60% choose to stay here following their graduation. Those are our future citizens, professionals, business and community leaders. So they are a very important cohort to the future of Atlantic Canada economically and in terms of population growth. So it's not just a big impact on our universities, which is significant, but we have a growing concern about the regional impacts as well.
The Fed said they put this plan into place, Peter, to help deal with the housing crisis that we're seeing across the country, and particularly here in Halifax and in Nova Scotia. And we've seen an increase or a decrease in the vacancy rate. A good news story there. Do you think that that correlates to the loss of these students?
Well, I'm not an expert in that area, sure, Dan, but I can tell you may have seen a story in the weekend Globe and Mail. The landlords across the country, particularly those in university and college communities, are really feeling the loss of international students. The vacancy rate in apartments in Halifax, for sure, has increased, and apartment owners are now offering incentives and discounts to rent those vacant apartments. And there's no doubt that the loss of international students, particularly here in Metro, has had a big impact on that part of the community.
What's next for universities, Peter, with that loss of revenue and that loss of students? Where do they go next?
Well, Dan, we've met with our federal Minister of Immigration, the Honorable Lena Diab, who is the MP for Halifax West. And we shared a proposal with the minister, and it's called Atlantic Education Destination. And this is a university-led initiative, which is a regional coalition of like-minded organizations, the Atlantic Colleges, Public Policy Forum Atlantic, the Atlantic Chambers of Commerce, Springboard Atlantic, which is our research commercialization network, and ACOA. And all of these organizations recognize, as I mentioned earlier, Dan, that the loss of international students is not just affecting our universities and colleges. It's affecting Atlantic Canada's economic growth and population growth strategies. So this coalition are all in agreement that we need to take an initiative for a regional international student recruitment or strategy. And there's widespread agreement that this is an important thing for us to do. Canada's brand has been badly tarnished internationally because of these policy changes. And what we're setting out to do is reposition Atlantic Canada as a premier education destination for post-secondary education students around the world.
Peter, obviously it's dollars and cents for universities, right? We saw last week the provincial minister asking schools like Dalhousie to justify each of their programs with this lack of revenue, with enrollments down across the board here in Atlantic Canada and in Nova Scotia. Are we in danger of losing programming at universities because of this?
Well, there's no doubt the Nova Scotia government has placed some new stipulations on our universities in terms of funding agreements called bilateral agreements. And part of those bilateral agreements is a requirement of each university in the province to do an academic program review. And there's a few aspects to it. One is to determine if those programs are fully enrolled and the employability of the graduates of those programs, as well as their alignment with provincial government priorities. So that's a very big task for our universities, but as I mentioned, their future funding is tied to that program review, one aspect of their future funding. So that's an important initiative underway at our universities right now.
Peter, we're out of time. I appreciate yours, sir.
Well, thank you, Dan. I always appreciate our conversations, and thanks for reaching out.
That is Peter Halpin, the Executive Director of the Association of Atlantic Universities, as they deal with the new reality that is in front of us when it comes to international students and that revenue drop as a result. Time to stop, take another break here on the program. When we come back from the news, we're going to talk a little bit about Halloween. It's not that far away now. New data showing that Canadians are scared of road safety during Halloween. We'll dig into it with the Chief Global Communications Officer at an organization called Nextdoor. Kelsey Grady will be your guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. I know most of you don't gain access to the after cabinet scrums at Province House, and what that is for those of you that before we get to our next guest, what that is that cabinet ministers come before a room full of reporters and answer questions, and just when I was walking out of here after our conversation with Peter Halpin about international students and the province's plan to have universities justify their grants by a whole list of different things, but living up to the values of the provincial government. Minister is taking Brendan McGuire's taking some serious questions about that right now, and it looks like he's in a bit of an uncomfortable position. We're going to reach out to him. We have reached out to him on this in the past, and he has declined our interview. But we're going to reach out to him again. Out of context, and Vanessa's like, okay, for fairness, just to try and get his perspective on this and what this means moving forward. So we'll reach out to Minister McGuire, who is currently in the hot seat, I'll say, and we'll see if he wants to join our hot seat, and we'll move forward on that. It's not that far away now. I was looking at this in preparation today, and I was like, we're talking about Halloween already? Come on. Like, really? But it's not that far off. It's the 16th of October today. Halloween, of course, is October 31st, which is not that far. I know. It's not that. Have you got your treats yet? Because have you eaten through them twice already? That's just the biggest scam that there is, right? The store's putting out the treats in September, and you think, I'll get them now and not have to worry about it. Yeah, right. Big scam. Anyway, a new survey out there by Angus Reid revealed that 6 out of 10 Canadians want additional safety measures during Halloween. Road safety, safety around other people topping the list of concerns. Some of the highlights, top safety concerns for Canadians this Halloween includes the weather, which we really don't have much control over, food safety, and bullying. Atlantic Canada, 67% most concerned about road safety nationally. We of course, live in a busy area, and kids are out trick-or-treating, and there's always that concern out there. But what if there was an app for that? What if there was the ability for us to plot out where we're going to go so we don't go up to somebody's house that isn't there? Or maybe they list, I don't know, what kind of treats they're giving out, and you can lay out your day. You can lay out, I guess it's night. You can lay out your night and trick-or-treat efficiently and safely. Well, I can tell you there is an app for that. And our next guest responsible for it, please welcome to the show the Chief Global Communications Officer at Nextdoor, and that is Kelsey Grady. Kelsey, how are you?
I'm good. Good morning, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Treat map. Tell me about it. What is it?
Well, I mean, you're right. I was just hearing you talk about, Halloween is just around the corner. I was counting the days. We're about 14 days out. And by the way, I do suffer from what you just said. I have been eating the candy that I bought in advance of Halloween. So we're eating candy all month.
Right.
But like you said, I work with Nextdoor, which is a neighborhood app. And all of the concerns you just talked about, we did run a new survey with Angus Reid to see what people were thinking about related to Halloween this year. And while everyone's really excited about it, we all have concerns about having a safe and fun Halloween with our kids. And Nextdoor, being a neighborhood app, Halloween is one of the most neighborly holidays of them all. And so we have an annual treat map that we roll out, which enables neighbors to plot their homes on a map to tell their neighbors, yes, I'm giving out candy. This is the type of candy I'm giving out. Take photos and post your Halloween decorations on the app. So when you're planning your night, you're like, wow, this street's going to be a really good street to go down because a lot of families are participating this year. And so it's just a really great way to collect information to plan that safe Halloween. And like you said, a lot of Canadians, and specifically Atlantic Canadians, are worried about road safety this Halloween. It's actually slightly higher for Atlantic Canadians compared to the rest of the country. And so Nextdoor just enables you to collect more information to plan that night.
Where were you when I was a kid? Right?
Well, we did it, in the era of, the digital age we're in. Sometimes we joke, should we have to have an app for that? Can't we just go talk to our neighbors? But The reality is we're all busy and we all use technology now. So if we can use technology to then go have those offline interactions, which is really where the magic happens, that's just the world we live in today, right?
Not only can you plan a safe route, but your neighbors can input what they're giving away for their treats this Halloween. And being the frugal person that I am, I'm certainly that'd be at the top of my list, right? They would say, oh well, look, they're giving away the good candy.
Oh, they're giving away the big bars, or they're an allergy-free house, right? Like that's a concern for a lot of families. They want nut-free candy or whatever they might be looking for. So it helps you just collect that information. Plus, it's just really fun to see your neighborhood light up online. It's a little pumpkin that appears on the map. And so I'm loving looking at my neighborhood and seeing how, involved everyone's getting this year. I have an 8 and 6-year-old. We already have our costumes ready, and we've already mapped out our night. We know we're walking down the street to this one cul-de-sac area where a lot of people have plotted themselves on the map. And so I think we'll have a successful evening with the kids, and efficient as well, right? You only have so much time to get that trick-or-treating in.
Right, and then you can skip the ones with the candy that you don't like the molasses kisses.
For sure. We always separate when we get home,
absolutely.
Mom and dad candy and the kid candy.
Right. Absolutely. Kelsey, What does the app look like? Is it look like a regular map on your phone?
Yeah, so Nextdoor, you can actually access Nextdoor on your computer, so through a browser, or you can download our Android or iOS app. And then when you go in, you land on a feed, but then we have a specific tab called the Treat Map. And when you click on that, it's a map that visualizes where all the trick-or-treating is happening. And you can click on pins for each individual house. So it's really fun, and it gets more fun the more neighbors participate, right? Like, we launched the feature, but neighbors need to go and actually plot themselves on the map. And the other thing I'd say is once you get there, like when we talk about safety being one of the top concerns, and weather and just everything related to the evening, yes, you have the Treat Map, but you also have neighbors conversing in the main news feed about all those concerns. And we also partner with public agencies, so local fire, police departments, et cetera, that will post safety updates on Nextdoor. So you get all of that information in addition to the fun feature of the Treat Map related to trick-or-treating.
All right, Kelsey, the technical questions, you mentioned it was available. I just go to the App Store or wherever and download it. Is it free?
It's free. So, it's one of the best free ways to stay connected about the things that are happening in and around your home. And we've been in Canada, since 2019. So we've been around for a while. So we have millions of neighbors using it in Canada, but it gets more useful the more people use it and share their local knowledge about what's going on. And the last thing I'd say is we have recently partnered with local news across Canada. So you also get local news on the platform. So if you forget to go check your local newspaper that morning or listen to your radio station, you see local news on Nextdoor too. So it really is a catch-all. But I really just want everyone to have an amazing Halloween season. I joke, I go, Halloween's a season now, not one night. Remember when we were kids, it was like one night. Like, it seems to go on all month long.
Right.
And so I just hope everyone has a really fun and safe Halloween.
Kelsey, I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
That is Kelsey Grady, who is the Chief Global Communications Officer Nextdoor. The Treat Map is out there. It's live, and you can plot your best method of attack try and monopolize on those hours. Some of my observations as an old guy now that I don't get to go trick-or-treating anymore is that trick-or-treating doesn't last as long as it did when I was a kid. I know this is going to sound like the old guy on the front porch rocking and yelling at the clouds, right? But like it was 5 o'clock, 5:30. Mind you, the darkness is different in different parts of the world, right? But and you weren't. I wasn't home when I was, at the top end of the age bracket until 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and we're talking like pillowcases full of stuff. And if you could do some reconnaissance beforehand and figure out where the good stuff is, just think how much more efficient you'd be. But at the end of the day, everybody, I know I jest, but it is about safety, right? The interesting number into this survey, and it's tough to kind of get real good context on it because we don't have any additional data, but it does say that the survey showed 67% of Canadians perceive their neighborhood just as safe as it was 5 years ago. 16% of them say it has become less safe. I hear that from parents all the time. I know I come on here and I rail. I don't see kids on the street anymore playing street hockey or playing soccer or whatever, and parents tell me that they feel that their neighborhoods aren't as safe as they were before. So that's another observation as an old guy watching Halloween. I see a lot of kids in groups, and which is smart, and a lot of kids in groups with parents, which we never did, because the rule at my house was there was a tax. I learned about taxes very young. When you came home and you dumped the candy out and sorted it and went through to make sure everything was safe, there was a tax. And no matter how much you cried about it, you had to pay it. It's a life lesson. Halloween's on a Friday this year, Vanessa. I'm very curious to see what Vanessa is going to wear for a Halloween costume this year. The gauntlet has been thrown. Maybe we'll dress up for it. What do you think? Oh, yeah, she's shaking her head. No, I think we should. What do you think, folks? Do you think Vanessa should dress up? If you do, I will. Yes. I've said it live on the radio now. I can't back out. I will dress up for Halloween this year, as will Vanessa. And we'll take pictures and put them onto the social medias. Getting ready to stop and take our last break here on the Thursday or the Friday Eve edition of, there's pressure now, on the Friday Eve edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. When we come back, I don't know, but I think I saw Vanessa walking by the prize cabinet earlier today. We'll see what she found when we come back. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. Dan Alstrand here on a Thursday, and it's been threatening. The skies have been threatening all day, haven't they? Right? There's been those dark clouds floating over, and Vanessa and I were like, "Oh, it's going to rain before we go home," and I don't think it has. At least not here at Young Tower. It doesn't look like. If there has been, it hasn't been anything significant. But I do believe we're going to get some rain, and I know that's good news for you out there that are still dealing with restrictions and are still dealing with dry wells. I read some interesting stuff very quickly before we move on about some of the issues that people are facing in the rural areas that are on well water, and we're getting to a point at which could also or almost be no return for some people on those aquifers that they drill into to provide water for their properties. It might be some significant time, and there's even the potential of some of those water courses not refilling again. And then what do you do, right? Like, what do you do without water? It's wild. Anyway, hopefully we'll get some rain. Hopefully we'll get some extended periods of rain as we head into the second half of October and into November. It is badly needed, and I don't suspect you're going to hear many people complaining about rain when we eventually get it. I think after this summer, if you remember way back at the beginning of the summer, we had every weekend it was raining, and everybody was like, when does it ever stop raining on the weekend here? Well, I think we are going to change our tune this time around, not to mention the fire situation and so on and so forth. Share a couple of emails with you that we gathered through the day today. We had a little bit of fun with the cow app. Vanessa thinks that they need to work on dogs next. I think that's probably smart. I wonder, the most interesting nugget of that to me was that they studied two different kinds of dairy cow, Jerseys and Holsteins, right? I think it was Holsteins. And they're very different looking cows, right? Jerseys are usually solid. They're usually brown or black. The brown ones give the chocolate milk. And the Holsteins are the black and white spotted ones, right? So, but they have a different dialect with their cow sounds. Who would you would think cow is a cow, right? But apparently they do. Anyway, we had a lot of fun with that, and I know some of you are out there downloading that app right now, and you're going to go down the country road this weekend and see if you can record the cows, aren't you? I think you are. Vanessa says she might do that. Anyway, this is similar. This comes to Ken, and Ken has a sense of humor, everybody. I'll just say that before I read this, and it reads, my Uncle Bob was quite the hunter. He often liked to share his hunting stories with us, as many hunters do. He said back in the 70s, he was hunting in rural Cape Breton on an early morning in the fall. He was walking near a stream. He came across a deer. And then further upstream was a large bull moose. It's Cape Breton, right? There's still moose up there, attempting to cross the water. He stood still, wondering which one to take aim at. So I asked him, which one did you shoot, Uncle Bob? And Bob quickly replied, I shot the doe, because I can shoot the bull any time. And that from Ken. Da-dum-dum. Yeah, it's that kind of humor. I mentioned before the break that Vanessa had walked by the prize cabinet, and she has something in her hand, and she's telling me it's a set of tickets to this weekend's historic visit to Scotiabank Centre. The Newfoundland Regiment will be in town on Friday and Saturday night. She just got the joke. It just literally clicked. The Newfoundland Regiment will be here on Friday and Saturday. These tickets, a pair of tickets to Saturday's contest, correct, Vanessa? This is for Saturday's game? Yes, it is. If you want to go and see the Moose take on the brand new Newfoundland Regiment, their first trip here across from Newfoundland to Nova Scotia, here is your opportunity. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Caller number 9. Wow, Vanessa's busy today. Caller number 9, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. A pair of tickets to see the Halifax Mooseheads, who won last night, by the way, entertain the Newfoundland Regiment on Saturday night at Scotiabank. And I'll say this, and I'll say it over and over again. If you have not been to a Mooseheads game as of late, if it's been a year or two, and you haven't been down to the friendly confines of Scotiabank Centre, go. Just go. It's such an experience. It's fantastic entertainment for the family. They've got it's busy from start to finish, and the intermissions and the mascots and everything else. It's good hockey. It's great hockey to watch. If you haven't been, I really and truly believe that you should go down there and enjoy it. And don't forget to stay by your radio and stay by your phone, because you never know when Vanessa walks by that cabinet when something is going to fall out, and we'll give it away to you. So whoever caller number 9 is, my regards to you. I hope you enjoy the game on Friday night. That's going to just about do it, everybody. We got one more day to go to end the week. The fabulous Friday edition of the program is set to go. We're going to have a conversation with the Conservative MP for the riding of Brantford, Brant, South Six Nations in Ontario. Also, the Shadow Minister for Justice and the Attorney General, that is Larry Brock. Larry's going to join us on the program. He's going to be in Nova Scotia this weekend, so we'll have a conversation with that. We were talking about Pam Mood earlier in the show today, and about this complaints and the ability to file complaints. And she had a quote in there that said it was a good idea to shut this down till we get the legislation right. We'll speak with the mayor of Yarmouth, Pam Mood, as part of that program. We'll open up the telephone lines at 11. And, of course, we'll do the Friday free-for-all, an opportunity for you to get all of that stuff out before the weekend and move forward into your Saturday, into your Sunday. Catherine Squires, congratulations. You are the latest winner on the Todd Veinotte Show of tickets to see the Halifax Mooseheads. Again, guys, go. If you haven't been before, go. It truly is it's a fun night out. Alistair will be here as well. Cecil will be here on Friday. Big show planned for you to wrap up the week. Thanks to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass. $350 for a haircut. Can you believe that? It's wild. Thank you. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Be well and be kind to one another.